Excellent. That was all a bit of a mad flurry in the end, wasn't it? Exploding hairdryers and the like. No light.
Not what you want when you do watercolour, there's no hot air.
Oh yeah, I've got that. Hope that doesn't blow up. Because that's our contingency plan. Dry air with a heat gun. That'd be quite funny.
You're quite warm.
That hairdryer gets warm. Gets too warm, obviously shuts itself off. Don't think anybody wants to join us tonight.
And you obviously joined.
Ah, Angie. Hi, Angie. Thanks for joining. Just hanging on to see if anybody else wants to join. Or not. We're going to be doing watercolour this evening. Well, not doing watercolour, having a look at it, seeing what we can make of it. It's not my strong suit. Who else has joined? I can see green writing.
Georgia P, Shaz, Olivia.
Hi Georgia. Hi Shaz. Hi Olivia. Hi. I think there's somebody else. Sorry if I've missed you out. Right, let's get cracking because the hour gets past otherwise. And then I'm in the middle of no man's land. Sorry if my hair looks a bit odd tonight. Odder than normal even. Because I was drying it and I got probably about a third of the way through and then it just stopped. And I've already broken my other hairdryer because I used it for craft projects. So we were actually down to using the hot air thing, but it had sort of dried by then, so you know, whatever. Anyway, today we're going to be looking at watercolours, and I'm going to be using watercolour paper.
Maddie Muir.
Hello, Maddie.
And Karen Smith.
Karen Smith. Yeah, hiya, Karen. As with all things that you use, I think I touched on this last time with the markers, there's always a specific paper that is appropriate for that medium that you're going to be using. With pastels, it's pastel paper, but there are loads of different brands. And with watercolour, that it looks like a minefield to me. I don't really understand the medium enough to know what works for me and what doesn't. It would strike me that there's probably 20 or more different sorts of watercolour paper. However, I've bought Winsor & Newton. It's 300, what's that, grams per square metre, which is pretty heavy paper. I mean, I would describe it as card. So that's what we're using. I've taken a sheet out and I've cut it into two because I want to do two different things tonight if I get the chance. Well, they're the same but a bit different. This one's got a line on it there because I actually want this one for another project that I'm doing. And this one, as you can see, has got blue on it. For those of you that watch, that are in the Fairy Chic Club and watch Jess's Friday Florals, you will have seen masking fluid before. I think the one Jess used was white. These are blue and they come in pens. It's a fine one, a medium one and quite a thick one, which makes them easier to apply to be exact to where you want it to be. And the other thing is, masking fluid absolutely wrecks your brushes. Even if you get it into water straight away, it's latex. It's a latex sort of, well, I think it is latex. So it sticks to the fibres of your brush and you can't really wash it very clean. So these are a great way of going on more exact and easier to keep clean.
Georgia P says your top's very pretty.
Oh, thanks, Georgia. I just found it. I was having a look for my winter jumpers and I found this. I thought, oh, I'll wear that tonight. So this has got a bit of that blue pen on, but that's kind of project 2 because I have only just put the blue pen on and I need it to dry. Right, let's set that aside. So this, I'm I'm hoping that you can see this. It's just a sketch. I've just done it really quickly now, and it's 3 dog roses, 1, 2, 3, and some leaves, and there's a little bud there as well. Ordinarily, if I was doing this, I would use, you know, when you get pencils and they say HB and you get 2B and 4B and whatever, and they're the really black ones, the soft ones, I would go the other way and use the hard ones, something like 2H, even 4H, whatever. So, and very lightly, so you can just see it, but that's all. But I needed this to show for the camera, so I've done it in a softer pencil, so hopefully you can see where I'm going. Right, the other thing I need to, sorry, were you going to say something? No. The other thing that I need to mention to you, when you hear people talk about watercolour, you'll hear them talk about 2 different techniques. One is wet and wet, wet on wet, and the other one is wet on dry. The first wet of both of these are referring to your paint. That's the wet medium. Wet on wet is when you've wet the bit that you're going to add your paint to. Wet on dry is like it is now, just a piece of dry paper. I'll hopefully show you what happens when it's wet on wet. So to do that, we need to actually wet the paper first, and trust that it's going to work. So I haven't got any specific watercolour brushes. There are specific brushes that you can get. I don't usually do watercolour, so I haven't got any. And I'm just going to mix up, before I start, some of the colours that I need. So I'm going to make these dog roses pink. So I've got a rose pink here. This is a set of watercolours by Schminke. They're probably middle of the road type watercolours. Loads and loads and loads of companies do them. I think the top-notch ones are a company called Daniel Smith. I've never ever even seen them, never mind tried them, so I don't even really know what the difference is. I guess it's the pigmentation within them. So I've spritzed these really well about 10 minutes ago, so they've all gone juicy on top now. So I'm just going to wet my brush. I've got 2 pots of water, and I know you always think it's funny that I'm always going on about watering, keeping your brush clean and blah blah blah, but for watercolour 2 pots of water is essential. One is to wipe the pigment, the watercolour, off your paint, and the other is to pick up clean water so as we can do this wet in wet technique. Am I going too fast? Have I told you loads of information that you can't remember?
Paula's joined, and Caroline and Alison.
Hi Paula, hi Caroline, hi Alison. Thanks everybody for joining me. I'm glad that so many of you have joined me on this day today when my hairdryer blew up. Because I'm sure I'm looking at my prettiest. Right, so as I've said, we are doing wet on wet, which means that the paper is going to be, oh, I didn't realise I had water on my brush. The paper is going to be wet, and then we're going to drop pigment into it. So I'm just going to go around one sort of petal of the dog rose, and then I'm going to make my colour up. This is just a cheap little palette. So you put some pigment straight from the pan of paint into there, and then you put water in it. And the amount of water that you put in it will dictate, thank you, the amount of how pink it is or how red it is. The more pigment and less water that you have, the stronger the colour. The less pigment and more water, the weaker the colour. So that's a weaker colour there. This is a stronger colour here. So let's just rinse that out, and we've got, can you see that? No, you can't. I don't think. Yeah, there we can. There's water on that bit of paper. So I'm going to pick up some of my stronger, which I can't remember which it was now, but it doesn't matter. And I'm just going to put it in the edge there, and look how that spreads. You don't actually need to do anything. just does that all by itself. See? It's just so pretty, and it just does that by itself. So let's wipe that off, get some clean water on our brush, and do the next petal along. These have got 5 petals, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so I think we're going to there. So just pull it down like that. Pick your paint up on the tip of your brush and just drop it in. And it will go where the water is. It won't go this side of it because there's no water there. That's just starting to just get a little bit too pale, so I'll just add a little bit more to that. Rinse your brush out, get some more clean water, and work your way around the petals like this. Look, as soon as I touch that, it goes into the new water that we've put down. It's like magic. It's just like magic. And, you know, I hate to say it, but you don't need a fat lot of skill. Everybody can paint with water, because you don't feel frightened about painting with water, because what harm can you do? So, therefore, if you can paint with water, my logic is you can paint watercolours.
You get a new brush and put in your clean water, and then you won't have to keep washing that out.
Oh, that's a good idea. I haven't got another round brush. I'll use that one. Right, okay. I'm confused now. I'm really sorry, but I've got this in my head. So I'm just going to add the water to the fifth petal. I haven't got enough water on that. Just need enough to make it run. And then you add your pigment round the edge. And like I say, because we haven't put the water on the outside of the flower, it won't go there. Now to make that run a little bit more, if you just keep adding water to it, it will keep running into the fresh water that you've put on it.
Susan says hi.
Hi Susan.
Jeannie says hi. Hello.
Hello. Hello to you too. So there we are. That's just a little bit more water as you go, but you don't want it to be too pink as it gets down to the centre. You want it to go much paler as it goes towards the centre. But if you feel like that's fine, I'm going to leave it there. I don't want the centre filled in. If you feel like you haven't got enough pigment around the outside, I actually think that's all right. And don't forget that watercolour really dries much, much paler. In fact, we'll dry this now and we'll have a look at it and then we'll see if we need to add any more. But it dries much paler than it looks there. Whereas acrylics, they dry back a bit. Watercolour, it goes very pale. So you've kind of got to be brave. So let's just dry this and see what happens. It's kind of like magic, isn't it?
Sharon says hi.
Who?
Sharon.
Oh, Sharon. Hello, Sharon. Thanks for joining me again.
And Angie says, that's so pretty, I need to try this.
You need to try it, Angie, because there's like there's no problem with it, you know what I mean? It just is what I've done. So you can see as it's drying, we're losing this pigment here. And this bit in the middle that looked like it was just going into nothing, it's actually, there you go, you see that? Okay, so I think that's probably dry enough for us to move on to the next flower. If you aren't happy with that and you think that you want more pigment, repeat the exercise. Put some more water down. Possibly don't go in quite so far into the middle. Just put some more water down and put some more pigment and it'll travel to wherever you've put the water. But you will notice that it hasn't gone outside these lines that we painted with water. So it's quite a magical sort of thing, really. So let's let's do the one next to it. You don't need to flood your page. Oops. You don't need to flood your page, but you do want it wet. But you want it controllable. Not running, you know, all over the entire page. You need to contain it within the bit that you want it to be in, if that makes sense. But everybody can do this because everybody can paint with water. You really can. You really, really can. So that's it, bit of water on there. I'm going to just pick up some pigment. And if you've done your first one and you thought that it wasn't strong enough, add some more pigment from your watercolours. A bit more clean water now onto the next petal. There might be two together there actually. Don't want this to go so far into the middle. I'm not. I wish that one hadn't actually.
Alison said, did you draw your design in pencil?
Yes, Alison, I drew it in pencil. Ordinarily, I would draw it in like a 2H or one of the hard, fine ones, very gently. But this one, because of the camera situation, I actually drew it in a 2B, I think it was, so it was black enough to pick up on the camera. But these dog roses, I'll go through them with you in a minute, because there can't be a simpler flower to draw. So that's the water down. Here's the pigment going down. You can see it. Look at that. It's lovely. Every time I do this, it's just magical. I love it. I'm just going back around here just to darken that edge up a little bit. And then we've just got the one more petal here to do. That's just too much water on there. If you get too much water, it will go out over the edge, obviously. I mean, you know, that's obvious. So just, you know, says she, just try to contain it a little bit if you can. And then you will have control and you'll feel better about things. I don't know why this has gone all ultra watery. So there we are, and just pop the pigment in along there, because it'll be underneath that one. And in actual fact, I need to put some water in there because that will be darker, because it'll be in the shadow of this one here. But that's just kind of getting fancy. I mean, you know, it's not necessary. Right, so what I want to do now is just encourage that to come in a little bit, but not in as far as that. That's too far in. So I'm just going to put some water there and just encourage. Coax, yeah. I think that's probably fine there. I think it could possibly do with a little bit more pigment just around the edges. Just to let it find its own way in life. And just under there as well. Okay. When it's dry like this, we can come back with the paint again and actually paint it exactly where we want it to go, not leaving it down to water. But I quite like this method. I think it's a nice method. So we're onto this one now. So put your water down. That's perhaps just a tad too much. You want to see it shining on the page, but you definitely don't want it swimming. And we're running out of pigment here, so I'll just mix some more up. Just go into your pans of paint. This is a small set that I've got. It's done me for everything watercolour that I've ever wanted to do. So I don't think you need to rush out and buy a massive set of watercolours, unless you fancy, of course. Buying art supplies is always a joy. Right, so we've got the water down here, and like I say, just dip it in, and look at that. Look how it radiates out from the place that you've put it in straight away. Look, and we've done nothing. We've painted with water. It's magical. So, same with the next one. And as you touch that one, you'll see the colour flood into it, because wherever the water is, that's where the pigment wants to go. So this is our last flower, and then we'll move on to having a look at the leaves and leave this to sort of dry before we come back and do the centres. Now I'm going to have a problem here because this one isn't dry. So I'm going to dry this one first, because otherwise when I come to here it's all going to join together, which in some cases, if you're doing watercolours, is quite nice to have that. But for this one I want it just a little bit more exact than this. And I will show you how to sketch these dog roses in a minute. Actually, we might put the centres of the dog roses in first, and then you'll see that they do actually work as dog roses. We call them dog roses here. I'm not sure if that's maybe just a Northumbrian thing. Maybe, I don't know. They're the kind of roses that give you rose hips. So you might have a different name for them where you live, I don't know. If you have, please share. So right, that's dried off this part here, so we can just carry on adding our water now, and it's not going to disrupt this because it's dry. See, once you touch it, it just floods in there. This really is kind of stress-free way of painting, I think.
Dog rose is the proper name for it.
Is it?
Yes. Rosa canina.
Oh, right, dog rose. Fair enough. I thought it might just be one of those things that, you know, local names sort of thing. So I'm just pulling this down into the centre before it dries completely. And then I'm going to get some pigment and put it on this bit that we've just done. And then once again into the final petal.
Other names for the wild rose.
Yeah, I thought it might be called that.
The briar rose.
Ah.
The cat nose rose.
The cat nose rose.
The cat nose rose. The cock bramble. The dyke rose. The hip rose and the pig rose.
Hip rose, yeah, I can understand that.
Another vernacular is humac, as in sheep, Hugh. Humac.
All right, okay.
There you go.
So there you are. I'm just adding more pigment around the outside. You can see what I've done there. And I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to leave the centre. I would have preferred this to have been lighter, and not to have this line around. I get the impression from watercolourists that having a solid line is not what you want. It's what we've got, okay? So we'll live with it. And I've got a bud up here. So I'm just going to do my same thing. It's just a little bud. And it's got green leaves wrapped around it because it hasn't opened yet. Just drop a bit of that into it. There we are. That's fine. Right, so I'll dry this off and then we'll do the centres and see what you think of them. It's incredible how it lightens up, isn't it? You know, it seems so dark and so vibrant, and then it just sort of dies back, which I like. It's one of the joys of watercolour. But if you want it really dark, you've got to be quite brave. You've got to put quite a lot of pigment on to start with. Let's dry the little bud while we're here. I think that will probably be dry when we come to it. Right, so the centres. I want a smaller brush, which I think was the one that went flying before. Yeah, this is just a little round. It's an acrylic brush. I haven't got watercolour brushes. If you have, you know, you're laughing. But I don't have any because it's not something I do that often. So I want a yellow for the centres, quite a bright yellow. So I don't want to add masses of water to it. Start some water with a clean brush. Because we know how it, you know, dries, it dries so much lighter, then we need plenty of pigment in this. So let's just start in the middle and just loosely. There's no right and wrong way about this. Just add little bits that would be there in the centre of the dog rose. Oh no, I really don't know. I'm winging this. I'm winging this completely. So it's just the bits.
Is that wet on dry now?
This is wet on dry now. Yes, well spotted. Yeah, because otherwise you'd put the dots on, and you'd just have a sea of yellow, basically, as you've seen happen to the other ones. I'm hoping that this is dry enough, I think. Right, so just some over on the other side, but you know, choose a side that's got more on than the other. And now I want a bright green, and I haven't got a bright green in my palette, so I've got this yellow, however, so I'm going to choose to add to it a little bit of green. And look at that, that is a beautiful vibrant green. That's more good luck than judgment, to be honest with you, but it's a really nice colour. So let's go with that, and let's add some green over this side. I hope the light's alright for you. It's not great for me, if I'm honest. So just dots of this, what you'd expect to find in the centre, like that. That's fine, we'll leave that to dry. Well, we'll dry it actually. I don't know where my fine liner went. I'm looking for a fine liner, if you're wondering what I'm looking for. That we had out earlier. Okay, they're dry. So I'm just going to use a fine liner, which would normally, this is what would normally happen at the end, you know, when you've finished everything. So the centre actually has more detail than we've painted in. So it's got a round sort of black bit. This is what I think. You know, go and look at a picture, because honestly, I'm winging it. So I'm putting a sort of, I'm not going all the way around. I'm just putting the marks in, and I'm putting some marks of black, because these flowers always seem to have black little dots around the centre. Like that. And same with the other two. Just, you know, just put some details in, some squiggles, some marks, some dots. And same with this one. So when you've finished everything, and I'm not sure I'm going to get everything finished tonight, which is why I'm going to show you this now, you can leave it like that perfectly well. That's perfectly acceptable. But what I like to do, as I like to do with virtually all of my paintings, is go around with a fine liner and just accentuate them. I'm sure that every watercolourist out there now is going, what? What are you doing that for? I'm doing it because that's what I like to do. You make your own mind up, really, what you want to do. And I'm not pressing very heavily, and I'm doing what you call lost and found edges, which is sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. But you'll get a better idea of kind of what it looks like when it's finished. And maybe then we can decide, oh well, we could have done with a bit more pigment in it, or a bit less for the next time, or whatever. Everybody happy?
I think everybody's happy.
That's good.
On the
Yeah, what?
upper rows you just need another little line coming in, separating the two petals. Top rows. That's the one. Now moving it to the left. Now down a bit. Up a bit to there. There. Thank you.
So there we are. We'll put these lines in to keep Mr. Fix-It happy. They don't always have them, and sometimes they look a bit false. But there we are. So that's kind of that. I'll leave that until I've got the green in. But there's our dog roses, and they were done so quickly and so easily. You could, of course, as I say, pick up some more pigment, some quite strong pigment, and go around the edge again, which would make it darker again, and they'd look quite nice. But I haven't got time at the minute to do that because I really want to move on to the leaves, which is a similar situation really to the well, it's so similar it's the same. So let's start at this top one, and I only want to do half the leaf because I want to give the impression of a bit of shading. So, you know, don't draw a line down the centre or anything, but just do half the leaf. Then pick up your paint. I'll use this brush. Pick up your pigment, drop it in. Away, that's a lot of water. Drop it in and just let it go where it wants to go. And the next one. And like I say, we only want to do part of the leaf, but try not to get it in an exact half or anything, because it starts to look mighty contrived at that stage. I would normally take longer over this, I have to tell you, but this is alive. You want to see some action.
Rosa says, fantastic lesson, fantastic video, thank you.
Oh, that's sweet, thank you. And a very appropriate name, may I say. Rosa.
Rosa.
That's my pigment brush, that's my water brush. I really believe that you can all do this. I mean, you know, I really do believe that. It's not... Because the thing is, you're painting with water. So there's nothing to be nervous about. If you go wrong when you're painting with water, leave it, it'll dry. So I'm just dropping this pigment in here, as you saw me do before. I'm glad somebody's finding it helpful or useful or whatever. I think sometimes if you see something like this and you think, oh well, that's the basics, let's go on and learn a bit more about it. You know, it might just get you started on that path to looking at watercolour as a medium that you might like. I must admit, since I started playing around with it, I've got to like it quite a lot. which I didn't think I ever would. I always thought it was sort of, well, women my age really, I guess, doing botanical studies. I thought that was what, watercolor, but since I've started looking into it, I realise that it's really not just that at all. It is that, there is a bit of that, but um, some fantastic sort of abstract stuff and real impressionist stuff, which I love. I'd love to be able to paint loose. I'm incompetent, incapable of doing such a thing. I don't know why. So you get the gist of what's happening here. I'm filling in half of it in this bright, lovely bright green colour, which goes ever so well with the middle of the flowers because that is the same colour. That's a bit juicy, that one. Too much water on my brush. Now not enough, come on. That one's pretty much straight up the middle, but never mind. And we're almost there. I think that's all the leaves. So it's just this little bud to go. And I really just want to do down there the tightest sort of leaf, filled leaf with this green. So there we are. And I'll come back and do the rest of it with a darker. You can see when this is drying just how light it's going. So I need a darker one now, but I want a darker green that's in the same family. If I suddenly was to put something like phthalo green in, which is very bluey green, it would on its own, it wouldn't look right. It wouldn't look matched at all. It would look alien. But what I am going to do is use phthalo green, but mix it in with this, so it will still have the same roots, if you like, belong to the same family tree, but it will be a different colour, really, different hue. So we'll add that into there. Need a little bit of water into that. It's getting just a bit too much pigment, not enough water. And how do I know that? I don't. I honestly don't. It just looked, when I spread it out up there, just looked like it was really thick. So I don't know. Apart from that, I don't know. So it's the same thing now. Put your water on. I don't think we're going to get time to get on to the next one tonight.
58 minutes at the end.
Well, if not, we can do it another night, can't we? So put the water where you want your colour to be. I think you've got the hang of that by now. Don't necessarily want to cover the whole leaf. I'm just going to leave bits that are white with the paper showing through. Hooray. I quite like the idea of the sort of spine of the flower being white. Kind of like it's catching the light, the sun or something, maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting a bit romantic about a leaf. If you've got proper watercolour brushes, I think you probably quit in really. But as I say, all I'm doing really is spreading water, so just going around the edge and letting it spread up as it wishes. Need to put the stalks in as well. So you wouldn't believe a second ago this paint was the same colour as the other one. I mean, it's completely changed. But phthalo blue is a very strong colour. Phthalo green even is a strong colour. So do you think really that you could feel that you could have a go with this? That you'd like to have a go? I do hope so, because it's fun, and it's just an introduction into getting to know what watercolours can do. I'm going like 100 miles an hour here. You don't need to do that at home. In fact, I recommend that you probably don't. The thing is getting to know how wet you want the surface when you're doing wet and wet. Just want a little bit in there. Too much. So we're just about there. The only bit left now is our little bud. So we'll just carefully paint that in water, which sounds bizarre even as I say it. But that's our little bud there. And we'll just drop some of that darker green into there. So there we are. Okay. Right, how's that looking? How are we looking? Well, we could do some details in the leaves, but I can't do them wet in wet because, as you know, if I do it wet in wet, as soon as I touch the pigment to the paper, it'll spread to all the wet places. So it's got to be done wet on dry. So we need to dry this and then come back and maybe look at some detail on the leaves. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a drink.
Said she's going to have a go, and Alison says she's going to have a go.
Oh, great.
And could you show them how you drew the flowers?
Yeah, I will. I certainly will. I'm just going to have a look at putting a little bit of detail in here. I'm going to put the stems in. I just want a little bit of detail on the leaves. They're very predictable, these leaves. I hadn't wanted them to turn out like this. They look half and half, which isn't really what I wanted, but they're pretty. I think it's quite pretty. I absolutely love the way this dries back dries lighter when you dry. I just love it. A couple of months ago this would not have been anything that I would have even thought about doing. But this bit of it anyway appears to be really straightforward. So you see the bits that I've left that I didn't put any water on. We've now got this white paper showing through and it looks really nice, I think, anyway. So let's just think about details on the leaves. I'm just going to go for a darker shade again, a little bit even darker than that. So it's wet paint onto dry paper for details. probably even do with a smaller brush than that, but so I'm just going to try and make a sort of centre line here and just bring out some veins. If you've got time, you can spend forever on this, and you know, the more time you spend on it, the prettier it's going to look. But you know, I presume you won't be doing a live. It's just a little bit too thick, this brush, but we just need to, where are the stems? That bud has a stem coming up to it. So I'm sure you get the gist by now. It's good if all your lines aren't in the centre. This probably needs just a little bit of definition actually. Here's a bud, you know. It's a bit darker there, so let's just tone that in. Anybody speaking to me?
Jacqueline says lovely. Sharon says pretty, and she's making watercolour greeting cards and she's swamped with orders.
Oh, good. Good for you, Sharon. My goodness, how you've come on. It's incredible, actually. I'd like to think I had a little hand in it. Maybe not the watercolours. Don't think we've really touched on them that much up until now. Don't forget your leaves, your flowers, everything, they do actually need stalks. You can't just stick them out in the middle of nowhere because they'll fall over. I really ought to have got a smaller brush than this, but you know. Okay, so I think that's probably about there. Oh, I'm telling you not to forget the stalks, I've been forgotten them myself. So in order to get fine lines, I've told you this before and I'm sorry for repeating myself, is put your brush in your paint, swirl it round and round and round in your fingers, gradually pulling it off the paint. And that way then you get a point on the end and you get a lot of paint in the belly of your brush, so you can go on drawing a very long line if you want to. These just need to be a little bit thicker than that actually. And this that's holding the bud up needs to be a bit thicker too, I think. So there we are, that's pretty much it. There's a bit of a whistle-stop tour around watercolour. If you wanted to, you could put shadow on it. There's a load of things that you could do to that. But given that it's 10:2 and I want to show you how to draw dog roses, etc., etc., we'll leave that there. Oh, it's not visible. We'll leave it there. Can you see that? No, you can't see it. Okay. Right, dog roses. Dog roses, you're going to have to look this up because I'm just going off what I thought 10 minutes to go to live time. So I'm calling these dog roses, but there might be nothing like it. But what you do is you assume that there's 5 petals, which is always, all my flowers have got 5 petals. And you draw a sort of circle, not exactly a circle, because it'll look a bit odd. And then start here and just go out of the circle a little bit and keep your line a little bit wavy. Like that, can you see that? Yeah. And then start here as if one is behind this one. So start here, come round, and in you go. And this one might be a bit bigger or go on a little bit further. And then this one. And then this one here. And there you are, there you have it, there's your rose. Obviously you'd eraser. You want to then get rid of these. You don't really need these lines coming down in between them. You can put them on when you're painting it, but you probably don't need them. It's also a good idea, I don't mean to frighten you at this stage, but it's a good idea if you can avoid rubbing out on proper watercolour paper, because what happens is it disturbs the surface and you get a slightly different finish. I mean, I suspect that is true for, you know, professional folks or whatever. It doesn't apply to me, because I don't think you'd tell the difference. So I don't know if you can paint on the wrong side of this, but let's have a go anyway. So this is what I was going to show you on this piece, but we haven't actually got time, so just show you here. What would happen if you actually wanted to paint a white dog rose? And there are reds. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so if we didn't want pink, if we wanted a white dog rose, how am I going to paint it on white paper, white card? Which is a good question. And what you actually do is you paint the shadows, or you paint where you think the shadows would be, and the shadow of white is grey, generally. So you paint around the outside, you paint that with grey. So let's have a go, let's see if we can do it. Let's mix some.
Explain to anybody that came along after you mentioned the pen, the blue lines you've got.
Yeah, these blue lines here are masking fluid. I have never used them in this form before, so I'm hoping that it works. Time will tell. Masking fluid used to be available only in little bottles, usually Winsor & Newton. It was white, and it's a latex type, well, it's latex. And when you put it on your paper, it adheres to your paper, and it doesn't let the water go behind it. So it forms a mask. Masking fluid forms a mask. You can't paint over it. So you put it on, you used to brush it on with a brush. After you've finished painting, wait till your paint is dry, and then you sort of roll it off with your fingers, and it comes off rubbery. It's quite pleasing to do, actually.
Like sunburn.
Yeah, a bit like skin when you're sunburnt. However, that's that. So, have I said everything? Yeah. These pens that I've got are blue, the masking fluid, just the same as the stuff used to be in bottles. The stuff in bottles is notorious for wrecking your brushes. It's latex, and it just sticks to the fibres of your bristles of your brush, and you can't get it off, and once it's on there, you've had it. So many a good brush was ruined in that way. These, however, are pens. There's a fine, medium and thicker one, and you don't need a brush because it's a pen. You use it straight, you use the nib straight out, and it's blue, so you can see where it is, whereas in days gone by it was white and you had to keep going, oh, where is that again? Well, I can see where it is now. So they might be something that you might, if you want to go down the watercolour route, I would give, you know, consideration to buying one of these. You probably don't need three. I bought three to see what they were like, but this is the first time I've used them, so I can't tell you, but hopefully I'll be able to tell you in about 5 minutes time. So we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to mix up some grey, which is let's use this one, which is of course black. And as you know, with watercolour you don't get a white. That's not true, actually. Some companies do a white. It doesn't work. It's not worth buying. It's a waste of money. If you're desperate for white on your watercolours, use gouache. It's what people have done throughout history. Use white gouache. It's opaque. so therefore it'll cover up whatever it is that you want to cover up. So I'm just going to add some water to that, just thin it down a bit. I've no idea if this is too light or too dark or anything. We'll find out as we go along.
Test on the reverse. Or just go for it. Be brave.
So, clean water. And we'll just do it the way we did it before, straight over the top of this masking fluid. One petal of the flower at a time into the black, drop it on. That's looking nice to me. But I don't know what it should look like, you understand, because I've never done this before in my life. So let's learn together. I think it's looking quite nice actually. I'd like to get that to go down to white paper if I could. I think I'm going to have to brush from the white up. I think that might be the secret. Brush from the centre up to there. Yeah, I think that might be the way forward, guys. So drop your water in. I'm getting a bit careless now, and that's not good. I know that we're running out of time and I'm like trying to go super speedy. So I'm dropping this into here. Drop another little bit in. And then I want a clean brush and I want to come up from the centre to there. So I want to keep it, well it's not actually, it's still coming into the centre. Next petal. And one more. Makes 5. It'll be interesting actually when I finish this. I'm going to look at what a dog rose looks like and see if I've been misleading you all along. Well, even if I have, it's been a pretty flower. So that's that, and then I'm just bringing it from the centre up to here. I think that's probably plenty dark enough. I don't want it. I might even at that have to get some gouache out. So we don't want the flower to look black, but I'm hoping that the masking fluid will help us. Yeah, I think we've got too much pigment in here. That's about it. So let's just put the centre in again like we did before. I've used my yellow for other duties, so I'll just get some more. I don't need very much. And this is wet on dry because it's details. So it's just sort of randomness. Then wet green, add the same green that I added last time because that made it pretty bright green. Put our other dots in. That's probably okay. When we dry that, we put the fine liner in. Try not to be try not to do a pattern with these, and it's really difficult to be random. I appreciate that. There's the centre. Just go around the edge now. You may not want to do this, and if you don't, that's absolutely fine. You certainly do not have to, but I like the kind of wispiness it gives to it. Especially if you go, as I say, lost and found, bits that are there and bits that aren't. I had a whole picture sketched out here to do, guys, but I'm afraid I didn't get a chance to do it. Didn't think it would take as long as it took. Just going beside the masking fluid there. Right, okay, I think that's a bit dark actually. See if we can get this masking fluid off. There we are. So once you get the masking fluid off, you can see that underneath is bright white. And it just sort of gives that image that the flower is white. Okay? I think if I was doing it again, given that this is the first time I've ever done this, but if I was doing it again, I'd take care just to get the pigment around the outside so the middle of the flower is really looking white. That's the fault of this, but even so, I think it looks quite pretty. Not bad for starters, plenty of room to grow, but I really think that you can, I think you've got, you've got the gist of it now. I've told you the gist of how to go on with it, and there's plenty, have a go at it. It's fun. It's really fun. When people say, talking away, and they go, oh, that's fun, and you think, fun? How is that fun? But this is fun. It really is, because just paint with water and drop your colour on. That's it. The only thing I would say is if you're using pans like this, 10 minutes, 15 minutes before you start painting, just take your spritzer and spritz them all. And it gets them sort of juicy. Otherwise, it's really difficult picking the pigment up from the pans. So do that. And there's always room in paint tins to mix your colours. But I thought it'd be easier for you to see if I used a little palette, which I think was, I don't know, 50p or something. It wasn't expensive. That much I do know. So that's been a really whistle-stop tour introduction to watercolours. I hope you've enjoyed the process. You may not be too delighted with the outcomes, but it's pretty. So I hope that you have fun with that. Really, I do. And if you do, please, will you pop over to Miss Paintalot's art group? It's a Facebook group, Miss Paintalot's art group, and share what you've done on there. Good, bad, or indifferent, it doesn't matter. That group is a really safe group. It's run by me and Mr. Fix-It, and nothing bad is ever said on that group. It's very supportive, and we all learn together. It's as simple as that. If you've liked this, can you share it, please? Could I ask you to share it? And if you've really liked it, can you join me again on Thursday?
The one in the book that you did?
Yeah. Seeing the dog's lying on his back with every leg like that, akimbo. Yeah, I was practicing the other day just to see what was going on. I was using this old book, Make Your Own Machine Applique Baby Quilts. It's quite an old book actually, and the paper is that stuff where it's old, just old. So yeah, that was one that I did with the rose hip and the rose, and another one. And then I did that one. I was just messing around to see if I could get a shadow under it, but it wasn't entirely successful, but it's pretty enough. I quite like it. I was fighting against the fact that the paper was so absorbent that when I put my water on, it was spreading outside where I wanted it to go. But anyway, that was what I was doing yesterday. Right, so thank you. I will be live again on Thursday at 6 o'clock, same time, but on Thursday, every Monday and every Thursday at 6 o'clock. Really enjoyed your company. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm very, very grateful. I really am. And I'll see you on Thursday. Thanks a lot. Bye.